Show.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Ice, Building Bridges. I'm Santiago Ramones, and I have some lovely guests with me. Starting to my left is...
Hannah, Kinsey.
And to her left is...
Catherine Bagarella.
I'm so glad to have you in here for another of our Newview featured podcasts. So we had Lee and Melissa here earlier, and now, so what is your role in Newview? I guess we'll just keep doing the questions in that order.
So I work in Newview's accessibility department. We do PDF remediation, so taking PDF documents and ensuring that they're accessible for all users. And then we also do a couple other things having to do with technology and how assistive technology, which is like a screen reader for a blind person, how that interacts with the web or other applications, programs on the computer.
That sounds really fun. We're going to get into that a little bit. But Catherine, what do you do here at Newview?
I was part of the MOVE program. I was a student here at Newview, and now I am a volunteer assistant for Lee.
Oh, great. So we got to hear a bit of what Lee does. So what is it like to be the assistant to Lee?
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so much fun. It's really keeping her on task because Lee has so many plates spinning at one time that sometimes she tends to forget she has things going on. And I just say, hey, Lee, you have this today. We have this today. And she's like, oh, thanks, dude. Appreciate it. And we're in the middle of getting ready to start creating new stuff on the display. New like polymer clay figures and armature wire stuff, all different kinds of things that Lee does.
Yeah. I've also gotten to be a consultant, so to speak, for all the music plans.
Oh, yes.
Same.
Oh, yeah. So we did that this past week. We ordered the strun sticks and she sent the list to Sweetwater for the music instruments and stuff for up there in the music room. Yeah.
Which I think kind of goes back to this question of technology and accessibility, because I've been having this conversation of like, how we're going to have not just a music room here at Newview, but also some sort of electronic music production type stuff. And immediately you start to think about like, well, how can we get blind and low vision people to use these things? Hannah, how do we get to interface with software when you can't see it?
Yeah, so there are a couple of programs that are already out there. So blind people use software, screen reading software. So basically it looks under the hood of any program or piece of software, and it looks at the code and it interprets that and brings that into speech for us. But of course, if it's not coded in a way that it understands, then it's not going to read anything. So like if you don't have programmatic labels on your buttons, for example, then it's not going to read anything except button. And so then you wouldn't know what button you're pushing or what it's supposed to do. So we're always looking for that. There are a couple of softwares already that people have done some work on. So like a DAW, Reaper for Windows has some extra software that goes along with it that makes it more accessible if you're using a screen reader. I know that I think Ableton is working on some. So there's stuff out there. You just have to know where to find it. Logic on the Mac has some built-in stuff that makes it work with the Mac. So there's stuff out there. You just have to know how to find it.
Yeah. As a musician yourself, do you do any music recording,
yes,
interfacing? So what is your preferred?
So I use Reaper.
Okay.
And that's just the first one I was introduced to. So it's not like I just love it the most. It's just the first one that I came across that I knew I could use. So it's the one I learned how to use. But it's pretty intuitive though, I have to say, in a lot of the plugins and stuff. seem to work well with it. You'll find some effects and stuff that just won't work if you add extra ones, but
yeah,
it's just all about finding which ones will work with the screen reader and which ones won't.
Yeah, that seems like, especially with, external plugins and stuff, it's hard. It's always a toss up to know if it's going to be able to communicate with your stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what were people doing without this stuff beforehand?
They probably weren't.
That's what I was going to say. We weren't.
I mean, either that or you were getting help, or you had, analog mixers and interfaces where you had sliders and, all of this. So you could do everything by touch, but now everything is becoming so digital. Mm-hmm. And so there's good and bad to that. If you don't make the software accessible, then we are just out of luck. But if you do, then it can be so much better because then we have access to everything. So maybe I'm moving a fader down, but I don't know how far I'm moving it down. But I can actually see the percentages when I'm looking on a piece of software. So I know exactly where I'm putting all of my faders or my gains. And then, of course, when you're dealing with compressing and all of this stuff, then I can see the actual frequencies and all of that. And it helps a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, and it's such a funny thing though, right? Because we've got into music territory, and I'm just nerding out over here. But there is a thing about the mixing philosophy and stuff like that. It's all this technology allows us to kind of mix with our eyes.
Yes.
And it kind of gets away from the fact that no, music is an audible medium.
Exactly.
And so we want to interface with everything with sound. And so it's how can you tweak stuff to where you're not looking at a screen, but instead you're actually listening to it and hearing all those changes. Mm-hmm. There's been this emphasis on community, especially regarding Newview and the blind and low vision community. Katherine, how has community taken a big part in your life with your low vision and blindness?
So before I came to Newview, I had a very small community. I had, my support group of my family, my close friends. But now that I've been at Newview, I've met so many more people that are like me or in the similar situation that I'm in. I lost my eyesight 4 years ago. And so for almost 44 years, I was working, like Hannah, doing stuff with music and stuff like that. And so it was a hard hit to not be able to do anything. And I still was able to cook and clean and take care of my family, of course. But, all of that was with assistance. I still cook. Mm-hmm. I love to cook and I love music. But, I do my cooking, but I always have somebody there to make sure that, my meat is thoroughly cooked. And, it's just but having community now, it's changed my life for the better. I feel like I'm a happier person.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with the thing about independence, right? It can be so difficult to be independent in a world that is so structured around being able to see. So how do both of you reclaim your independence?
I think part of it is knowing that you're never going to be completely independent. And that can sound negative, but it's really not. I think there's power in knowing this is what I can do, but this is when I need to ask for help. And I think there's it's stigmatized, don't ask for help. You need to try to do everything on your own. But I really do think it's important to know your limits and to know, hey, now I just need to reach out to someone and say, hey, can you help me with this? And just to surround yourself with people that are willing to do that. I think that's so important. I'm very fortunate and blessed that I have people in my life that I can say, hey, this thing, I can't do it. Will you please help me? Because you're just going to have moments like that. But for the most part, though, I think technology is advancing. We're getting so many different things with AI where it can like describe the clothes I'm wearing if I take a picture, or it can, read labels for me for different foods that I might have needed help with in the past. I mean, there's so many things now we're advancing in such a great way that does allow us to be more independent. But it's just finding the balance, I think.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I think that's my biggest thing, is giving myself the grace to say it's okay. It's all right to need the help. I like I said, I grew up very independent. I was raised to be very strong and independent and self-sufficient. And I'm still all of those things. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I'm still very independent and self-sufficient, but I've had to realize and accept that it's okay to ask for the help. And it's okay to say, I can't do this anymore on my own and I need assistance. And that's okay to do it. And that's okay to accept the help. But then it's also, I love my support group, and I have great people in, my family and friends that are always so willing to help. But then for so long before I got the mobility and training that I did get here at Newview, they were having to do so much to assist me, like to get around a grocery store or something like that. And now with my cane, I'm able to do all of that, on my own with them and not having to, use their arm as a guide or whatever. And it's like they're having trouble accepting that I have that independence back. Mm. but it's not like they get mad at me, but I kind of feel it's not they're mad or nothing. It's just like like they're upset. Like, well, now you don't need me. Well, no, I don't.
But I mean, it is a very fine line to walk, right? Of needing help and being willing to ask for help, but then also maintaining those relationships, right? To make sure that you are kind to the people that are helping you, because there, like we said, there are some things that we just can't do by ourselves. And I think it also kind of extends to this greater thing that, like, regardless of being blind and low vision, like these sorts of things apply to everyone, that like no person is an island. Regardless of who you are and how fully independent you think you might be, you still aren't growing your food in your own farm and cultivating it and turning it into like your own food. There's someone else that you need to rely on to make sure that you survive. And so regardless of how proud you might be to ask for help, you're actually getting help.
Yeah, it's like swallow that pride. It's okay to need the help. Mm-hmm. Like Hannah said, it's okay to know that limitation, that that, you can still do this and you can still do that, but you may need a little bit of help. You may need a little bit of assistance. So, I mean, for me, I was a single mom for so long. I have 2 sons. And so I was a single mom for years. But I didn't do it alone. I had my mom and then I had their grandparents. So I had my little village of people. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I feel like here at Newview, I found my village. Yeah. Absolutely. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I found my village. I found my people.
Mm-hmm. At the YMCA.
Yeah.
Something that we talk about in some of the other podcasts is sort of like, notably with Mark, and talking about like, so he had asked like, oh, what's your favorite part about being blind? And I can't remember if it was you, Katherine. That
it was
the VIP treatment.
That's right. The VIP treatment. I mean, who doesn't love being able to go through TSA at the airport in 2 seconds? Like you just get pushed through.
It's so true. They gave me orchestra seats to Lion King. Okay. Like I needed to be closer because I couldn't see. It was funny. I mean, it wasn't going to make any difference how close I was. I wasn't going to see the lions. But they thought I needed to be right up front, and I didn't argue. And I didn't have to pay for them either. I mean, I paid for a cheap seat and I sat in the best seat.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's probably a better sounding experience.
I mean, that is true. Absolutely.
But yeah, and so it's not all doom and gloom, but there is maybe some doom and gloom. How have you gotten through maybe some of the depression of blindness, especially for you, Katherine, more recently having gone through it? What sort of helped you through?
Prayer and music. I'm a big music head, so I was in band from the 6th grade to my sophomore year. Then I found chorus, and I was in chorus from 10th grade through my senior year, all city, all state. I mean, I loved it. And music has just been my release to everything. And I mean, my kids, I turned my kids into big music heads. My kids are so eclectic. They have the newer music and the new generation stuff, but then, you go through my kids' playlist and there's Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and MC Light. And I mean, you just find all these different artists, and then you find classical music on there. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you guys. But that and my kids got me through it. I mean, they get me through it. I mean, I still have those days. I think we all do, where we have those down days where you just get up and you're like, I can't adult today. And my sons will look at me and they're like, it's cool, Mom, you're good. You're all right. I'm like, but I don't like asking. And they're like, quit. You took care of us, so now it's our turn to take care of you.
What about for you, Hannah?
Oh, yeah, I would say number one is my relationship with the Lord. There's a passage in John chapter 9 that talks about Jesus and his disciples coming across a blind man. And the disciples ask, who sinned? Why is he the way that he is? Was it his parents? Was it him? Like, what caused him to be this way? And Jesus turned to them and said, no one. He did nothing wrong. No one did anything wrong. He is this way so that my work might be made manifest through him. And so I live my life so that others might see Christ through me. It's why I do my music. It's why I do what I do here at Newview. I try to live my life to reflect Christ. So that's the number one. I would say the next thing is my family. And then after that is music, and then books. I love to escape into a good book.
That's amazing.
Thank goodness for Bard Mobile. I love to escape into a book.
I like the library. If y'all aren't using your library, you need to do it. You're paying for it through your taxes, but they have good, you can use Libby to get audiobooks and ebooks. Yes,
People
and
forget about Hoopla.
I love Hoopla. That's what I'm saying. Y'all use the library. It's amazing.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and doing this with us. And I look forward to hearing more on the upcoming Newview podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Connecting a community through conversation.
Breaking Ice, Building Bridges is the Possibilities community podcast platform. Thanks for tuning in.